Music's always been part of my life. My dad was a big country player. He played guitar. It was a different scene. There was a lot of my older cousins and stuff were greasers and bikers, and it was like there was the big Marlon Brando image kind of thing, James Dean kind of world. It was all greased back, and there's a lot of bad stuff going down, the bad boy thing, and I didn't really relate to that. I played football and basketball, but it was really not my thing. And then I found out I could pick up a bass guitar and go out and play in a band and get a lot more girls. So that kind of started the whole thing, to be honest with you. But then the Beatles hit, and once you heard the music, I was like, okay, there's nothing going to stop you after that. As opposed to having gangs and stuff like that, it was like my band's better than your band, and they had battle of bands and all that stuff. But you got to meet really, really great people, and you got to make a lot of really good lifetime friends who are still, most of them do it today just because they love it. So that's been my passion in music. The first concert I went to was in Zanesville, and it was Paul Revere and the Raiders. They had this little touring show, and I saw that, and I thought, this is absolutely great. And the next show I saw was Jimi Hendrix, and it was like, wait a minute, what was that other thing? No, that other crap, this is where it's at. And if you think about it, 1, 2, 3, 4, the entire Sgt. Pepper's album was done on that. If you can imagine that, it's like, so that's it, that's all you get, People having 60, infinite tracks with the computer now. But in college, I went to OU in Athens, and they didn't have a degree for audio. So they put me in communications, which was the closest thing I could get to working with microphones and everything else. If you can see the old mics down here, we'll go down and look a little bit here in a second. But they're all vintage, they're all tube, a lot of tube Neumanns. Anytime you see a shot of the Beatles, they're always using a U69 or a U67 or a U87. And the 67s are the tube ones, which is what they predominantly used. And this is one of the few places that still has those mics, which are now worth a fortune, of course. They allowed you to do, before you graduated, to do an internship and get credit for 1 quarter by doing an internship. So they want me to go to a radio station or TV station, which is affiliated with the major, but I said, I want to go to a recording studio, because I've been playing in bands since I was 16, and I was really into the recording part of it. And so I came up here to Mus-I-Col Studios and bothered John Hull and Boyd Niederlander, the two of them, and then just literally pestered them to death till they'd say, okay. You've seen the lobby. Going through here. Bathroom. Little drinking water. And this is Studio A. This was the first room they built in '68, I believe. And this is not the original console. In fact, this is the third console. And the original ones and the second one were both hit. You notice the tower outside. The lightning hit it and came right through, took out everything in here. And a lot of tube stuff down here too. This is a Paul-Tech, an original Paul-Tech equalizer. And they work really strange ways with their tube. They have that warm tube sound. Tube preamps. This place has a lot of tube preamps. And there's certain warmness to them that come with them and everything else you don't get from anything else. This came out of Wally Hyder's mobile recording studio board. He recorded the Rolling Stones.
Rolling Stones. Herbie Hancock, maybe?
I think so. Dead.
A lot of stuff with the Dead, right?
That's actually out of the board in the truck. It's still one of the few rooms that I know of around here, especially in the Midwest, that you can actually still record all analog. You can record it 24 tracks of analog, mix it through an analog board, record it to a 2-track analog, just like everything was done in the 70s. It was a whole different world back then. If you've ever seen anything about the Beatles or anything, of how a studio ran and everything, it was very much like that. Engineers did this, you did that. There was ways of keeping records. Everything was stored in certain ways. So I learned all the basics of how things should be done from the very beginning. In 1980, started working here again and became the head engineer in '82. And from '82 to '90, I was head engineer here. And like I said, we did bands, all kinds of stuff. That was probably the main era of the analog band things and the record things. And also I was doing, at the same time, doing commercials and all that other stuff in Studio B. And the whole time I was playing, of course, that gave me the right to come in here and record my own bands. So that was like, yeah, that's the big draw. That was a fun thing about it for me, to actually be the musician down here. So that's just some of the stuff I worked on, but there's tons more. And it's like one of the strangest bands ever, but they're great. I mean, I like them all. From Dayton. Let's see what else we got here. This is one John put together for these guys. These are all done in the 80s, every one of them. And this was a band called Your Aggression I did here.
Yeah.
They actually were from Greece, and they were going to Ohio State, and they got pretty popular, especially in Greece. So I don't know whatever happened to them. And then Great Plains was the other one that came out of here. It was one of the 80s punk. Not, I wouldn't call them punk, they were eccentric. And they got a lot of big press. This is Brothers Grimm, heavy metal. You talk about heavy metal from the 80s. These guys are really, really good. Played Alrosa a lot. They're getting a resurgence again, too. Both the guys, the two brothers, decided, well, we're in our 60s now, the 50s now, it's time to rock and roll again. And this is a Willy Phoenix album. It was kind of hidden. He did a lot of stuff where he didn't put anything on the covers. Buy the album. There's the role of the engineer, if we're going back to the 60s and the Beatles. The role of the engineer is to get the right mics on the right instruments and get it to tape, in those days, at the correct levels. And that was your job. Then there was another person who was the producer. The producer was responsible for the musicianship and the song and the final product. Now at Mus-I-Col, most people, you became both. So I pretty much knew the room. I could get my stuff up pretty quick, but I became more or less as much as a mentor. I wasn't considered a producer, but I was much a mentor or anything else. So half your battle became just dealing with the people, getting the most out of the people you can get. You know, because everybody's got it down there and people were scared of the red button, as they say. But your job became both. You had to get the tape correctly, but in the same sense, you had to make people comfortable because the performance is everything. You know, I'd rather have a really poorly recorded great performance than the opposite. And one of the greatest lines I ever heard was, you can never produce yourself. I've had many really great artists that came in who wanted to control everything and did everything, and in the end, they got a lousy product. But if they let me do it, or they'd given up some of that power, they would have been incredible, because they were incredible musicians, even with incredible songs. Sometimes you can screw it up just by producing yourself. You know, you can talk about the technical stuff forever, but two things happen. First of all, it's a song. If you haven't got the song, you can arrange it, you can work on it and everything else, but when you hear a great song, you can do it 1,000 ways and it'll all be great. You know, if you got a mediocre song, it's going to be mediocre no matter how well the people play. And being able to convince people to change little things here and change little things there, you're producing. But to being able to, in the end, they go, wow, that is better. You know, that always made me smile when I did that. When we finally get done, they always go, thanks for your help. This is with mastering on it. And here's without.
Oh, wow.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
Now I can turn the whole thing up, but it just adds a certain fatness. Well, Willie and I go way back, way back, and but he's one of the most inventive guys I have ever met. And we come and go. In the entire 80s, he would come in here because the owners really liked Willie, and he give him some extra time and everything else. But he can invent anything on the spot, and he's got a great voice and the thing I like most about him is he can write. That man can write some killer songs, and prolific. I mean, it's like, how many years has he been doing this? And every time I record him, it's like, wow, he's in a whole new world. He's gone through so many different worlds, but they're all really good. And his live show is legendary because he just, you know, he was doing the Prince freak out thing long before Prince was even thought of, you know. So whatever, but he can control a crowd. He knows how to do it. He knows how to go up and down, and he always has a great set of musicians around him too. Plus, he's fun. You know, he's never been a partier. He's never done anything at all, and he's just, music is his life. So I have the highest respect for Willie. There are two forms of mastering. First of all, for MP3s and CDs and things like that, and you use mastering for radio commercials, TV commercials, they use different forms for things like that. You master for radio at one level, which is as loud as you can make it. And television is like it'll be a lower level, but you get more dynamics out of it. So you learn to use the formats given you whatever it takes. And records can only go so loud, and there's only so much time. The less time, the longer an album is in length, the thinner you have to make the grooves, which affects the sound. You know, and there's an optimum level in there, so you have to like kind of fight one over the other, and you also have to explain to people what's going to happen if you want to put 28 minutes on one side of an album, you know, like an Allman Brothers thing. It's like, whoa, it's mighty thin, but it's all 28 minutes, you know, as opposed to saying, all right, let's make an album that's 19 to 20 minutes long, you know, per side, and it works out really well. But it's a fine art. Joey Mullins was producing a band from Detroit, and I was down here engineering the whole thing. This was pre-digital, and everything was analog. And what the coolest thing about him, Joey had me, because you know normally we come in,
figure and being in
yeah,
Abbey Road,
other than being a bad figure and looking just like Paul McCartney. So he was always the one who looked like McCartney. But anyways, we were in here recording everything, and normally, you know, in the American way, you go cut the drums and the bass and the rhythm section, then you add the vocals, and then you add piano or you add other stuff and everything else. But we would do the stuff, and the band was, you know, American band or whatever. And we set up and started doing it just like we normally would with the rhythm sections and everything else. And he says, well, I need a piano. Let's hear the piano. Let's put the piano in now. And I was like, well, wait a minute, I got to go mic it all up and everything else. And he looked at me and goes, why isn't it mic'd? And I was like, because we do that in overdubs. And he says, no. He says, when you went in Abbey Road and you recorded like the Beatles recorded, every instrument was already set up. So if you got an inspiration, you could go record it right then. Wow. And I thought, brilliant. Yeah. You know, opened my eyes to many things. Yeah. So I was like, yeah. So we said everything you could think of. We had an acoustic guitar chamber ready. We had the piano mic'd up. We had an organ ready to go. And every time he would come up with an idea, we'd just go do it, and it was ready to go. Wow. We didn't waste any time or lose the inspiration. It was a brilliant thing. And the English got it really well on that. Most of the stuff I hear out there by people who are like this, I bought this mastering software, and it makes it sound really loud. And yeah, but does it sound really good? So, you know, I won't say the less is best, but there is a fatness you get from compression that even under your best mixes and everything else, you put that fatness in there, and if you use it just right, it'll fatten the whole thing up and give it a tonal quality. And you want to they're always harsh frequencies. You need to find those and get rid of them. So there's a mastering on that end of it before you get to vinyl. So for MP3s, CDs, bands, and things that's just going to be in an all digital mode forever, there's a certain way you master for that. If you're doing it for a record, where you can have some final mastering later, you give it some headroom. You make sure that the thing's not too loud for him. So, so when you get a hold of it, you got actually something to do with it. If you know you're going to make a record, you should mix for a record. If you know you're just going to make MP3s, by all means, master for that. That there's two different levels, and it's not unusual. You know, if you really get it, you know, get the final mixes with no compression at all from the artist, which is almost impossible to do. You know, then you can control it and you can do what he was going to do, and you can give it your variety and your spin on what's that. Because invariably, my mastering stuff is usually better than everybody else's mastering stuff. The war is on. That's what you know.
This lathe was made in 1944, during the war.
Yeah.
So he was able to get a big hunk of aluminum somewhere to do it.
Yeah. Because you always hear them talk about, we're going to make an acetate copy. That means you put it on there and you can play it once you get done.
But that's what it looks like with no grooves, no grooves cut in the chest. And that is lacquer, very similar to what they used to paint cars with. Mm-hmm. It's allowed to set up in its own atmosphere, so it sets up soft.
He is 89 now, and he's wanting somebody to take over and learn the art of it. And once again, it's kind of like having a car you built, because like he's talking about Neumann lathes and the new lathes that come out, and the things, all the technology that goes into them, and they're incredibly expensive, but still, you know, you can put it in there and it'll give you like a formula in, formula out. It's like a robot assembly line. Whereas he goes in when he masters and he enhances what's given to him. in the same sense, and knows how to make a record sound much better than just what the record should sound better than what went into it. It's a fight. It can never sound the same because vinyl is not digital. You know, it enhances it, it does things to it, it changes things. Some people like it, some people don't. But he knows how to make it better. Let's just put it that way. To my ears, in my mind. So yes, I'm working with John on this, and I need to learn the craft. It's one of the few crafts that it's the next logical step. Still, to this day, it's the only place that you can come in the Midwest, record the stuff here, mix it here, take it down, have John master it, and press the records in the same facility, all in one. But when you walk into a studio and you're paying by the hour, you know, no matter what you say about it, there's a different feel you get when you walk in because it becomes much more important. You're in a place that's done many, many good things, and you psych yourself up mentally to do a better job. You want to be good when you're in here because it's a record of what you're doing, you know, a physical record and a, you know, mental record. You know, I came in odd, and I've seen people walk out here crying because they did such a lousy job, but they come back the next day and say, come on back and we'll do it again. Then they come in the next day with a new attitude and bam, it's done. So yes, it takes on a whole different sense of, you know, priorities. And your brain works much better when you're in here because you're not distracted by anything else. You know, you're totally into the thing and this is what you came to do and this is the time to do it.
There used to be equipment sitting in the hallway.
You're about to drive me out of my mind. You're such a bad, good middle thing. Baby, don't drive me out of my mind. I get so jealous now.